Progress.
I think we wait for a minute or two.
Show you whoever's talking.
Okay. Let's wait till 6:02 and then I'll start. Okay, it's 6:02. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining. My name is Marla Smock. I'm with the Willamette Water Supply Program, and we'll be doing some introductions of our project team here in a few minutes, but just wanted to say thank you for joining us. This is the Cornelius Pass Road Pipeline Project Meet the Contractor combined with the first Wildlife Management Plan stakeholder meeting. It's Wednesday, January 4th, 2023. Happy New Year. Okay, next slide. So just a quick rundown of our agenda today. We are going to just talk for a second about meeting tips and protocols in case anyone needs a quick Zoom refresher. I'm going to give a little overview of Willamette Water Supply in case there are some new people who don't know what our project is about. We're going to introduce our team. We have our project manager here who's going to talk about the scope of the project and talk about some early activities that will likely be happening this month in January and how to stay informed as the project moves ahead. And then we'd really love to get through our presentation and then answer questions at the end. You're welcome to type in the chat if you have questions as we go, and then we'll just answer those when we get to the end. I hope that works for everyone. And we can stay on as long as needed at the end of the meeting to make sure all those questions are answered the best we can. Next slide. So a couple of things, the meeting is being recorded. So if you have to drop off or you want to watch it again tomorrow or another day or want to share it with a neighbor, we're going to be posting this meeting to our website after the fact. Please keep your microphones muted during our presentation. And again, you can chat in the chat field if you have a question, and we'll answer those at the end. And then at the end, you can also use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to verbally ask a question. Next slide. So just a little bit about the Willamette Water Supply Program. This is a partnership between the City of Hillsborough, the Tualatin Valley Water District, and the City of Beaverton. This new system, which has been under development for about 10 years now, includes an expanded water intake in the Willamette River in Wilsonville. A new water treatment plant is being built in Sherwood off 124th Avenue. There are 30 miles of large diameter pipeline to connect the system. And eventually 2 water storage tanks will be built on Cooper Mountain. One is under construction now. And really important to know that this system will be earthquake resilient, able to withstand the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake. And it's really important for the City of Hillsborough, as the City of Hillsborough has only one water source. So if something were to happen to that source, they don't have a backup currently. So this is a really big capital project for the City of Hillsborough. Next slide. So I'm going to ask each of the people listed here to introduce themselves. Again, I'm Marla Smock, and I lead communications on the Willamette Water Supply Program. And we'll just go down the list, starting with Erica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Murphy. I am the project manager for this stretch of the pipeline project. I was involved throughout the design phase of this project, and I will be heavily involved throughout construction as well as project manager. And next for Sean.
All right, hopefully everybody can hear me. My name is Sean Fackrell. I am the project manager for More Excavation. Currently, we have a handful of projects related to the Willamette water program, and I'm on actually one other project out in Tualatin. So we have some experience on this.
Hey everyone, Kyle Butler. I'm the construction manager for Willamette Water Supply Program. So I'll be working hand in hand with Sean and the MEI team out on the construction site and also with Erica as well.
And Phil is last. Phil?
Yeah, hi, Phil Rickus, ecologist with David Evans and Associates, and been working with water supply here for about a decade now. Nice to meet you guys.
Okay, next slide. So Sean, just want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about More Excavation. You mentioned the other projects that you have been involved in. Do you want to touch on any of those projects?
I can do a quick highlight. We've completed 2 of the jobs listed on here. We did one, it wasn't my job, but it's Garden Acres and a Roy Rogers one. We've finished. We currently have underway 3 projects, one out in Beaverton, one in Wilsonville that's actually just getting started, and one in Sherwood. It's our 4.1 job that I'm involved on. That one is about 50% pipe installed on that one. A little bit about More is that my phone's ringing. We are a local contractor out of the Fairview area. We've been around since 1956. We are a diversified workforce, equal employment, just a couple boilerplates, but we are also a very safe company. With some of these deep excavations, safety is one of the biggest stresses on this, and making sure that our shoring's up to par, but we do have a very good track record. So hopefully that helps out, that we will be, looking out for the public's interest as well as obviously the safety of our employees.
Great, thank you, Sean. Next slide. So now Erica is going to start a little description of the overall scope of the project, and we'll just continue through our PowerPoint.
All right, thanks, Marlis. So what we're talking about now is PLW 2.1, which is the pipeline stretch that is going into construction here shortly. You may have heard about PLW 2.0 recently, and that was for a bigger project that has now been split into 2 smaller projects. As you can see on the graphic on the right, the area shown in blue is the portion that we're planning to construct now. But north and south of this pipeline in black the schedule is currently to be determined, but that will be constructed at some point in the future. And that is in the Cornelius Pass Road right of way. So starting at the south end of our project, PLW 2.1, where the number 5 circle is there at the bottom, we are starting and we're installing about 900 linear feet of 48-inch welded steel water pipeline through Aranka Woods Nature Park. We're skirting along the east portion of the park. We cross what we call trenchless crossing underneath the TriMet light rail tracks, so we don't have to disturb the tracks at all during construction. Moving north, we are in the Cherry Lane Fire Station property, and we are also using this area as a staging area. So that's where the job trailers will be placed, as well as materials and equipment storage throughout the construction time. And then continuing further north, we have about 1,800 linear feet of pipeline within the former ODOT rail right-of-way, or what we call the berm property, currently owned by the Willamette Water Supply Program. And at both the north and the south ends of the project, we are we're installing the pipe into Cornelius Pass Road, so that in the future, when we tie into the both ends, we will be entirely within the right-of-way for construction. Next slide, please. The current construction schedule as it stands, it is subject to change. And I know Marlis will talk about this later, but we will have monthly updates, and that's where we will communicate any scheduled changes as construction progresses. First activity that's happening is vegetation clearing in Aranka Woods Nature Park. That is scheduled to begin later this month. Some of you may have seen the notice. We're doing that in January. It's actually for the birds, and we're trying to minimize disturbing any nests. And so doing the work before February 1st is preferred for the wildlife. So we do have some early vegetation clearing in the park, which will set us up for construction of the pipeline in the park later this year. The staging area, which I mentioned, is in the Cherry Lane Fire Station property. It's kind of south of the existing fire station. We will begin staging, mobilizing onto that site in February of this year. Pipeline construction will begin in Aranka Woods Nature Park starting in June this coming summer. Also, we will begin the TriMet light rail crossing in June as well. At this point, we are looking to do the work in the park first and then move north of the TriMet tracks, which will put pipeline construction in the ODOT right-of-way property about early 2024. In order to be ready for that work in early 2024, we will need to remove the trees in late summer or fall of this year. We'd like to do that in the dry weather. It's quicker and it's safer. So that is the current schedule, to remove trees this late summer and fall, and then begin pipeline construction at the beginning of next year in that property. The project completion date is scheduled for fall of 2024. I believe it's an October final construction completion date. Next slide, please. So standard work hours in our project, on all the projects across the program, we have 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. I did want to note that Hillsborough does allow work hours that are longer outside of this time at these times, from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. all days of the week. We do not anticipate any weekend work, but if something does arise, whether we have a weather event or some sort of construction issue, it may be necessary to do a little bit of extra work outside of those standard construction hours. Again, we will be notifying everyone if that does occur. The only night and weekend work that is potentially anticipated is at the north end of the project. And I'll point to this again later in a graphic, but in Cornelius Pass Road, there is some pipeline being installed into the center lane of the road and will cause significant impacts. So we're thinking that a short and 24/7 kind of work can get the work done quicker than having to drag it out over several weeks of daytime construction. No night work is expected at all in the park or at the south end of the project, which we know is a heavy residential zone. Next slide, please. So this is just a few things to expect from construction. We know construction is inconvenient and no one wants to have it in their neighborhood. But you know, we will try to be as efficient as possible and keep things moving forward as safely and quickly as we can. Some of the things to expect in the berm and also in the ODOT, in the berm property, excuse me, is the tree cutting, like I mentioned, for later this summer or fall. We will have some short-term lane closures. We'll have some potential traffic delays, and that will be for Cornelius Pass Road as well as for Cherry Drive. There will be some sidewalk closures, and that will be around the park so that we don't have pedestrians in the construction zone. We will also have some bike lane closures and detours as we do construction on Cornelius Pass Road. These will be communicated ahead of time, and there will be signage out on site to make sure that everyone stays safe and we don't have people conflicting with our construction zones. There will be heavy equipment and materials in the park while we're doing pipeline construction and heavy equipment in all of the construction areas. We will have flares and detour signage when needed to control traffic. This is especially relevant on Cherry Drive, which I think I'll talk about a little bit later. There's generally noise and dust from construction activities. We are required by the state, as well as good practice, to minimize any noise, any dust that's coming from the construction site. Also, there is vibration that comes from excavation activities, and we will have a vibration report that will help guide us on how we can be sure and we can monitor vibration so that we understand what kind of impact we're having on neighboring properties. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, some traffic impacts. We worked extensively with Washington County during the design phase of this project, mostly for the Cornelius Pass right-of-way work. A couple things that we're really trying to keep in mind is to minimize impacts to the traveling public, maintain safety for all users, including passenger vehicles, bicyclists, and pedestrians, maintaining access to adjacent neighborhoods and businesses, and providing emergency vehicle access at all times. This is especially important since we have the fire station in the middle of the project. So like I mentioned before, there is potential night and or weekend work anticipated just at the very north end of the project within the Cornelius Pass Road right-of-way. We have no closures anticipated on Cherry Drive. This is because of the emergency vehicle access coming to and from the fire department. You can expect minor delays while there is construction actively in the roadway. We expect up to 2 weeks of construction within the road. But there will be a flagger on site to allow for immediate access for all emergency vehicles to ensure that there's no delays. Next slide, please. Moving now to the south end of the project, this graphic here, north is to the right. And so this is the south end of Aranka Woods Nature Park. We are not allowing any construction equipment on Northeast 77th Avenue or within that neighborhood that's south of Aranka Woods Nature Park. All construction access to the park will be from Cornelius Pass Road, and that will be through the parking lot that is at that south end of the park, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But the important thing is that there may be some passenger vehicles, inspection staff, et cetera, driving through the neighborhood, but we will not allow construction equipment on those narrow streets. We have left turn lane closures planned for Sabo Street at the south end of the project. And also there's a driveway that's south of Nicholas Court at the north end of the project, potentially up to 8 weeks while we're installing pipe within Cornelius Pass Road right-of-way. We will work with any businesses or residents that would be affected by that lane closure. And lastly, we expect some lane closures throughout the day on Cornelius Pass Road while active pipeline construction is happening in the roadway. Next slide, please. Just some kind of general information for those not familiar with construction techniques.
I'm not figuring out how to see their slides.
I think there's someone who's not on mute. So some kind of general construction activities. Most of the pipe will be what we call open cut pipeline construction, where we dig a large trench with an excavator. Like Sean mentioned, we have shoring installed in all of our trenches for the safety of our crews. We have 50-foot sections of pipe that will be installed. The pipe sections are placed in the trench, and then they're welded together. And then the trench is backfilled with some materials, so it looks similar to how it looked before the pipe went in the ground. Next slide. When we get to the TriMet light rail crossing, we can't open cut that because it would disrupt service on the light rail. So we're doing what we call trenchless pipeline construction, where we have deep shafts will be dug at the north and the south ends of the tracks. And then we install this boring machine, similar to the one that's shown there on the right. And we install a steel casing, 60-inch steel casing underneath the tracks. We auger bore that through. And then we put the 48-inch steel pipeline inside that casing pipe. And then we fill all the voids, and then we fill in those shafts at the north and south ends of the tracks. And that entire process takes about 3 months from the time we start excavating the shafts to the time everything is backfilled. And that's one of the first activities we have planned for the project this summer. Next slide, please. All right, now I'll cover the work that we have within Aranka Woods Nature Park, just kind of a general overview. The area shown in blue on the right side of the park there is kind of a hashed blue area. That is the entire work zone, and that includes where the pipeline will be installed, plus some extra area that we need for maneuverability of the construction equipment to get access to install the pipe in that area.
Hey, Erica,
Yes,
I think the next slide is a blow up of this. Would that be better?
yes, let's do that. Go to the next slide. Yeah, thank you, Marlis. So that blue area there on the right is the pipeline work zone. We have up to 12 months we expect to be in that blue work area. A lot of the work is going through the Rock Creek in that area, as well as the trenchless TriMet crossing, as well as just installing the rest of the pipeline in that area. We are hopeful that it will be quicker, but we do have up to 12 months in our schedule to complete that work. Like I mentioned before, the access to the park will only be from Cornelius Pass Road. And so the area shown in yellow is the construction parking lot, or excuse me, it's the parking lot at the south end of the park. So that parking lot will be closed for the duration of construction so that we can maneuver vehicles in and out of the site without having to drive through the neighborhood that's south of there. So there will be a fence around the parking lot to limit access to that during construction, and there will be signage in place as well. In addition to the pipeline work in the park, we're also doing some trail improvements. This was an agreement with the owners of the park to increase some accessibility of the trails in wet weather and to also protect some of the wildlife in the wetlands there. So the areas shown in pink are the trail improvements. So once the pipeline work is complete in the park in that blue area, we will be doing pipeline improvements in the pink. So there's one area that's on top of the blue you can see on the right side of the screen. And that will be what we're calling the Eastern Trail Improvements. And then on the west side there's another kind of larger area in pink, kind of at the bottom left. And we will be rerouting that trail to bring it up out of that wetland and hopefully make it more accessible for more times of the year because it frequently floods in that area. The timing on the trail improvements is a little bit dependent on the weather and depends on when we finish the pipeline work in the park. It will most likely be early 2024, but we will keep everyone informed when before we start the work on those trail improvements. The only other thing on this graphic is you can see on the north side of the TriMet tracks, the area in orange. That is the staging area that we have that is part of the Cherry Lane Fire Station property. I think those are all the highlights on this one. Let's go to the next slide, please. So while we are working in the park, we do have some trail closures planned and some detours. We want to be sure to keep pedestrians safe from construction, as well as wildlife, which Phil will talk about a little bit later. The first activity, like we mentioned, is the vegetation clearing later this month. So at that point, there will be some temporary trail closures near that blue area on the right side of the park there. We will have signs posted and we will give notice prior to any trail closures. The area in blue will most likely be closed for up to 12 months. And so that parking lot and the trail that goes over that eastern bridge over the creek will be closed for up to 12 months, starting most likely this summer. We do have temporary detours during construction, including, if you can see the dashed line that's on Cornelius Pass Road at the very far right of the graphic, that's part of the Aranka, the trail that goes through. So in order to avoid the construction area, that is a pedestrian detour to go around the construction area and get back to Cornelius Pass Road. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass it over to Phil to talk about the wildlife protection measures in place.
Hello. There, yes. Essentially, we've created a plan to outline the methods to be taken to protect wildlife throughout the park during construction. And to fulfill the commitments for water supply. Is there a next slide, please? So some of the highlights of the plan are to minimize the duration of construction, physically limit the extent of impact at any given time, provide for large mammal passage, protect amphibians along Rock Creek corridor, and recover wildlife as needed to salvage them from the work areas. Next slide. If you'd like to.
I can
actually,
get
think
this one,
is-
Phil.
Thanks.
So I just wanted to talk for a minute about the best way to keep informed about our project. I know most of you on this call are already signed up for our monthly email updates. I recognize your names. And if you have neighbors or know people who aren't already signed up, please sign up through our website, or you can send me an email. We also have an extensive project website available. And like I said, this meeting will be posted after the fact to that website. And then we are having the regular wildlife management plan stakeholder meetings. So about every 3 months or so, we are going to have another meeting to talk more about what's about to happen on the project, what we're doing to protect the wildlife and the habitat. The date of the next wildlife management plan meeting is not yet scheduled, but as soon as we have it scheduled, we will let you know. Next slide. And most importantly, throughout the duration of the project, and for many years, I've been working with a lot of you, keeping you informed about what's happening on this project. Now that we're getting closer to construction, and you're going to start seeing some activity in the park, in particular, if you have questions or concerns, whether it be about construction or wildlife or anything like that, to please call our hotline. And there's also an email address, info@ourreliablewater.org. We monitor both of these throughout the day and respond usually the same day to people. And then that will help us inform our next meeting. If there are questions or concerns about wildlife, then our next meeting, we can address anything that we might hear from you. Next slide. Okay, so that completes our presentation. So now is the time, if you have questions, if you'd like to state your question out loud, we're happy to do that. If you want to type it in the chat, that also works. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So I wanted to ask 2 questions that have to do with the area of 73rd Avenue that is alongside the upper portion of the work. And I wanted to ask whether vegetation removal is going to take away the trees that are screening the residences from the garbage company across the berm. The current trees provide screening from sight and also from the noise that happens at the garbage collection area. And will those trees be all taken down, or are they going to leave a screen of those?
Erica?
Second,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. Second question was, I just want to know what the risks are for the foundation of the residences along 73rd, which are within, I don't know, probably 20 yards of where the main pipeline is going to go down. So.
Thank you. We'll have Erica address. I think Erica will address both of those.
Yes, I will have to look at the map for the tree removal for the 73rd Avenue. There will be some large trees that are coming down, and it's mostly the eastern portion of that berm property. We tried to get the pipeline as far away from the homes as we could, and so we determined that the farthest east portion of that property was the ideal location for the pipeline. So there are large trees. Anything that's on that eastern half is slated for removal. We can follow up specifically about your property if that would be helpful, since I don't have the plan open now at Marlis, if that's the right way to respond.
Yeah, if you're curious about something directly behind your property or a specific tree or something like that, if you could type that in the chat or email us. We do have a plan that shows which trees are being removed. And then there's also a series of trees that are more on the closer to the townhomes that have caused kind of long-term maintenance issues. So some are going to be, ones that are leaning over a townhome will be removed. And then there are other ones that are going to be thinned out. So we also have that level of granularity and detail. So, but yeah, a lot of those large conifers on the east side of the berm property that bump up to those commercial properties are going to be removed. And then Erica, I don't think you mentioned that they will be reused at Jackson Bottom Wetlands, correct?
Yes, I did not mention that. Thanks. We did work with the city of Hillsborough. We recognize that those trees are large and valuable, and they will be donated to the city of Hillsborough for use at their Jackson Bottom Wetlands to restore some habitat. So we're thankful they're at least going to a good use once they're no longer at this site.
Okay, well, I'll follow up on that. The issue on the screening is significant because they do a lot to minimize the noise of in the mornings of the garbage trucks going in and out, and of course we would prefer not to have to watch all their operations from our windows. Okay, so the second point was, given the proximity of the houses along 73rd, should we be concerned about the vibration causing issues with foundations or the crawl spaces under the houses, which we need for maintaining various functions in the house?
Right. So we recognize that is a risk, and we have a specialist who actually does vibration monitoring and assessments. They will be coming soon. They'll be under contract, and we'll be able to perform an analysis for the team that will actually show which properties we need to be concerned about, and we can work through kind of the next steps before we begin any construction in that berm property. We will have a plan in place that I know Marlis will be communicating as we start doing that work in the next coming months about that. The soils in general, without getting too engineeredy here, we do have soft soils. The excavation work that we are doing and the installation of the pipe is not very. It isn't very intense for vibration, that we're not doing any blasting or anything that would require any sort of pounding. But we do have a vibration expert who will be giving us recommendations on how we should proceed. And so Marlis will communicate that as we move forward through that process.
Yeah, I think Stonewater suggested that we document the current state of that portion of our houses to so we have some kind of documentation in case there is an issue.
So, excuse me, to follow up on that question, you're acknowledging it could be a risk to the foundations. We were told earlier there was no risk to our foundation. So we would definitely need to know exactly what's going on. You're using a vibration monitoring. What company will be doing that? Who will do the monitoring on that vibration equipment? If it gets to a certain level, who's going to stop the equipment to address what's happening?
Let me clarify, when I said it's a risk, it's a potential risk, but
Yeah,
that.
we understand potential. Yeah. thank you.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's what we're looking for the expert to guide our team on whether or not it actually is a risk. We don't have the company under contract, but I don't want to say the name because they're not under contract yet. So we will communicate that as we move forward with that process.
When does the risk actually get determined? And is it on a house by house basis
So
before the work starts?
What typically happens, and so I've been on a couple of projects where we've gone through the same exact process. So what happens is this third-party expert on vibration monitoring, they'll put together a report. And their report will show our project site. They do analysis of all the geotechnical samples of the soils, of the wetlands, of all of the different kinds of geology that they're dealing with. And they'll basically say, all of these properties over here, they might feel some vibration during excavation, but there's no, in our expert opinion, there will be no damage done by this work. Or the report may say, these properties over here, there might be like superficial cracks to plaster or to wallboard. So what will happen once we get that report is we will go through that with them, and then we'll look at all of that data and also kind of our own experience in the area. And then we can weigh in on that report and kind of put together a plan for our outreach as it relates specifically to vibration monitoring.
Right, but
And then we'll be in
Isn't-
direct contact with property owners.
wouldn't you have to know how close a particular home is to the work and also know basically how their foundation's constructed to know the risk of that individual person's foundation? I mean, what if it's an older home versus a newer home? So, when
Yep,
does
we
that,
take all of that into account.
okay, and when does the homeowner learn this before the work starts? How far in advance?
Erica, do you know when they'll be on staff and when the report might be drafted? Because construction in the berm doesn't happen until about a year from now, correct?
That's correct. And I don't have a timeline yet on when we can expect that report.
But as soon as we do, we will let all of you know.
Okay, and then if there are cracks in the interior drywall or plaster, is that something that gets reported to you for repairs? Are you expecting the homeowners to go after their insurance company? Because there may be an exclusion for that because it's ground movement related, although I guess it's caused by a third-party force.
So the previous, any kind of claim typically goes through homeowners insurance. But first and foremost, we want to make sure that we have a really robust plan and that we have a really thorough investigation so that we avoid, what we don't want is what you're describing. We all want to avoid anything like that happening. So that's why we have the third-party consultant come on board.
All right, and if a homeowner has some concerns about the consultant's report, can they request a review of their own individual foundation and location with respect to the project for further analysis for their specific property?
I don't know. We haven't had that scenario. So I'm assuming that we would, be responsive to people who had a lot of concerns about it. But that just hasn't been the case because the plans have always included nearby properties.
Okay, and just one last question is if these instances have happened yet to date, how's the deductible handled? So, have there been some damage to sheetrock? The homeowners go to their insurance carriers, the carriers, hopefully cover it. but everybody usually has a deductible, whether it's $1,000 or so. How's that deductible being handled?
Honestly, at that point, I don't know what happens after that point. We share with the homeowner the name of the contractor, so that the homeowner has information to share to their insurance company. But beyond that, I'm not aware of like what the logistics are there.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
Yes,
We have
I have a question. Several.
And Marlis, we have a couple of questions in the chat as well.
Oh, great. Thanks, Tammy.
Could I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would say that, I'm a homeowner along 73rd, very close to where this work will be done. And one concern that my wife and I have is anything being done in the staging area to prevent light intrusion at night? I don't know what sort of, I would assume there's going to be some sort of lighting over where all your material and trailers are. I'm wondering if anyone has considered mitigating that so that, these searchlights, spotlights, or whatever kind of light you're going to use won't be shining into our windows at night.
Erica?
Yeah, we went through a process when we did the land use approval through the city of Hillsborough. We did what we call a photometric plan. And one of the considerations we took in addition to the neighbors and having light pollution, is for the wildlife. And so we have very strict areas where we're not allowed to have any light pollution, so that the wildlife can still continue to pass on the outside of the fence. And so we do have, it was reviewed by the city and approved. It's a very specific lighting plan that the contractor is going to be held to. That does reduce it. It doesn't allow any light pollution to go past a certain boundary of the staging area.
Thank you. Yeah, that answers my question pretty well. The other concern we had was when trees and shrubs and bushes that are scheduled to be removed, are they going to be marked so that the homeowner will, know what's coming and, sort of get used to that idea before the bulldozers actually show up to take out shrubbery, trees. There's a huge hedge behind our house. So we'd be interested in getting a heads up on what actually is planning to be removed.
Yes. So in general, the work area of the pipeline work is the eastern 70 feet of the 100-foot wide property. I know there was, and I don't know, Marlis, if you can speak to some of the property, the ground lease that we have with the homeowners, that was kind of done in a way to keep that 30 feet behind everyone's homes protected. Like Marlis mentioned, we do have some trees in that area that are identified as nuisance trees that we have some trimming planned for and a few removals, but we've talked, I think, to all the property owners specifically about those trees. And then everything else would be in that eastern 70-foot portion where all the brush removal would take place, as well as tree removal. And we will mark them before they are removed. That's just part of the due diligence that we do to make sure the contractor is removing the correct trees.
Yeah, I can understand you're talking about the berm houses. Our house is one of those strange ones that's not quite on the berm, but is still going to have the pipe coming behind it and then turning north to go up the berm. And there's quite a bit of shrubbery, evergreens, a big hedge back there. We're wondering if somebody could, put some tape up as to what. I know you guys got a temporary easement for part of that area, but we'd be interested in knowing what's going to come down before it actually comes down.
Yeah, Mr. Allen, you're kind of more off the cul-de-sac at the south end, right?
Yes. That's
yeah.
right.
So like Erica said, we'll be sure to mark those. We did do a survey, I want to say it was last summer, where we marked trees with like an X if it was going to be removed, and then like a different symbol for ones that were going to be trimmed. So I'm assuming we'll go through the same process all over again, right, Erica?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll mark the ones to be removed. The brush is a little bit more complicated, but we will have a fence, a boundary fence during construction. And so that will delineate where the brush removal will take place. And so that will also help kind of define the areas where the construction activities will be taking place.
Great, thank you. I only have one other question and an observation for some of my fellow homeowners on the berm. Quite a few of us have already hired an inspector to come in and do a baseline study of our foundations, photographically and with a report. And our house was one of them. That we do have a baseline of what now exists in our foundation. If other homeowners who might be on this thread are interested in that, they could get in touch with me.
Okay, Erica, can you see the chat?
And I can read out the questions. We have one from Luann. When will water be running through this section of the pipeline?
That will be determined when the rest of what we're calling PLW 2.2, so the area north and the area south of this. Tentatively, it's scheduled for 2028, but that does depend on budget and other things. It was originally postponed because of budget. I'm sure you've all heard about the supply chain issues and then the inflation increased construction costs. And so one of the unfortunate things we had to do in order to keep this program moving forward was to defer those two portions of the pipeline until the tentative date's 2028. But that may shift depending on other factors. And that's when water would be flowing through this entire pipeline.
I'd like to ask the question back to the homeowners and the potential of damage. Have you had damage to plaster and in other portions of this pipeline construction for homeowners who have had to turn in a homeowner's claim?
Yes.
Okay, did you take care of that deductible?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Can you get the answer for that?
Someone
needs to get the answer to that.
Yeah, I can try. I think it's between the homeowner and the contractor.
Okay, so
I don't want to put Sean on the spot, but Sean, do you happen to know the answer to that question? Not, I mean, it wasn't your company, but do you know how that works?
I'm trying to think of a good response. I'm going to probably put out a response that's different too. So I don't handle insurance claims internally, but if it's my suggestion, things will get documented on your house. Things will get assessed. If things do occur, things will get handled appropriately between the companies. I don't actually know the answer to that. I am the guy that builds. I don't necessarily dispute the claims. So I do apologize that I don't actually have an answer for that. But we have dealt with it as contractors in the past, and we do it through the legal process.
So I assume that more excavation under the insurance requirements, Willamette Water System is an additional insured. Is that a wrap policy or is that just an additional insured policy? Do we know?
I highly doubt anyone on this call knows the answer to that question.
Okay.
How do we get an answer to these questions?
I will Erica and I will contact our legal team tomorrow and ask.
Okay.
Then I have a couple more questions in the chat. One is from Pam, and her question is, will any of the vibration issues affect the homes in Orenco Woods Crossing neighborhood near the nature park lot along 77th Avenue?
That will be the same process as the berm properties. So the analysis that the third-party experts will do the entirety of the alignment. So we will look at all of the properties, including the ones down in the neighborhood near Orenco Woods Nature Park.
Excuse me.
Yep.
So if the water is not going to be running through this pipeline for several years and you're not constructing either ends of the pipeline for several years, why are you doing this? What was the decision that made you do this section? Because this is a huge disruption to all of us that live along 73rd. And if there's no water, there's no benefit to the city of Hillsborough. Seems to me you're disrupting all of us for no good reason for several years before it needs to happen.
I wasn't part of that decision process, but I do know that a lot of it is the permitting process. So we did a lot of the permits for, and maybe Jill can jump in and speak to this, for the entirety of the program. So like Marlis mentioned, we have a treatment plan and 32 miles of pipeline. And we have permits to get all of this work done at once. And so we have the staff on board for that work for the Willamette Water Supply Program that are actively constructing projects. We have a real estate team in place. We have an outreach team in place. We have permitting staff. So we have all of the resources needed now to do the projects. So the intent was to do every single project that we wanted to do. We understand that it's not ideal to have these other portions delayed, but we just budget wise, we had to make a choice. So again, it wasn't my decision. It was the management or the agencies involved in this program that made that decision to postpone portions of the pipeline. But the intent really was to get as much done as we can now while we have all of the resources in place, and then fill in any areas that we just couldn't afford with the budget at this time. And I don't know, Jill, if you have anything to add to that. Jill is our permitting.
I'll take a whack at it. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Jill Kamisha. I'm the permitting coordinator for the program. I also was not a voting member on that decision, but I understand some of the background. We're constructing the entire project, all of the facilities, the 30 miles of pipeline in pieces. So pieces started, I don't know, as Marlis probably knows, I think as long ago as 10 years now that this program's been under construction, and it'll continue. Some portions will continue in construction for quite some time. So it's just the nature of a big budget project like this, that different pieces will be constructed at different times. Eric, I think you hit the nail on the head about keeping this piece moving forward and delaying the other pieces of this particular region. A lot of that is because it is so disruptive. We want to make sure that we have all of the right people who've been a part of the design and understanding the wildlife protections, the homeowner protections, et cetera, still on board and active to support this project while it goes through construction so that it can be as smooth as possible. We'd hate to go through all of this work that we've done with you folks in the past several years and then let it sit on the shelf for another 5 years and come back and do it all again. It makes a lot of sense to just keep the folks on board that we have right now who can see this through to the finish line.
We live in the building that's a very north building of this project, and right before you go back onto Cornelius Pass Road. So 3 years ago, you guys came through and you took out all of our brush and most of the trees, and where before we could not see Cornelius Pass Road from our house, now it's continuous. We can see everything that happens. We can see the businesses there, and we can see the traffic going by, and they put up a sign at this auto place that flashes bright lights 24/7 that shines right into our windows. And that's on the side of the house that has all the bedrooms. So 24 hours a day, we have lights coming into our house because you took out the brush. Now you're going to take out the rest of the trees that are theirs. And so we've been living with that for 3 years. Now you're going to start the construction, but there's nothing that's going to be, there's no benefit to the city. There's no benefit to the people for all this work you're going to do for another 6, 7 years. So it's going to be minimum 10 years between the time you took out all the brush till the time is going through there.
Hey, Luann, a couple of things. So I'd be curious to know more about the sign that you're talking about because, we should take a look. with the city and see if that's a code, some sort of code issue, if you have bright lights
I
on the
did call the
sign?
city and they got all the permits and she said it
Oh.
was within code.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, and then the second thing is, and I can't remember if you took advantage of leasing the property behind you from us, the 30 feet.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay, so what we're really encouraging people to do is plant trees and shrubs to create your own, buffer within that area on the Willamette Water Supply property, which, will do nothing but in the long term, like get bigger and bigger and hopefully provide more and more of a buffer there. But yeah, we can totally understand the frustration. Yeah.
Can we plant trees? The lease says small shrubs and bushes.
Let me go back and look at the specific language around that. I think the reason for two things. I think for as far as screening goes, we thought people like shrubbery makes more sense than trees, just for that screening effect. And then trees also over time become kind of a maintenance problem. So I think that's why the language in that agreement said, like no large trees. So, but I can go back and take a look at the language that's in the agreements.
That would be good because it's a 2-story house. And so it would be nice to have blockage of the light and the street noise on the second floor.
Okay, let me go back and look at that.
Thank you.
We don't have any more questions in the chat. We do have somebody, Jim Wright and Nelda Lewis, that would be interested in that structural engineer report.
I think go ahead, Marla.
And that was the Allens who offered people to let them know. And are the Allens still on?
No, I think that they got off. So
Oh, they did. Okay. You know what? I can contact the Allens tomorrow. So 788, it's the Lewis's 73rd. Jim, right? Nelda. Okay.
thank you. That would be fantastic.
Yes, for sure. I can just let them know I have their email address. So that should be no big deal.
Sure.
Okay. Does anybody have questions?
And I'd like to actually add something. This is Sean with More Excavation. We know that this is a berm. I know some of the big concerns are with vibration. At least so you guys are aware, this is softer. And somebody can correct me on the terrain out there, but it's softer soils. The areas of concern to me would be like rock X, which we're not expecting to encounter rock. Rock would cause vibration. Our means for backfill is wheels. So we're not using vibratory backfilling methods. We're using pinwheels. So these are just little, if there's a point of emphasis I can help make. I'm a homeowner too, just like you guys. I understand protecting your assets and, we're all on board with it, but the means of how we're installing this pipe is not vibratory means. We're excavating it out hydraulically, we're putting pipe in, like I said, the worries to me would be rock X in there, because then I have to bring in vibratory means to remove that rock. And we're doing pinwheels for the rock for backfill and reinstalling that soil. So if I could at least provide some 2 cents on it with the installation, they're going to do the reports and the reports are going to say what they're going to say. But at least the means for installation should be relatively fast as we go through there, and they're going to be relatively unevasive to you guys, is my opinion as a contractor.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. That's really helpful. And Erica, the one thing that I think we failed to mention is you had some kind of ballpark for how long you thought the entire construction through the berm would be. Do you want to hedge a guess?
You're
Sean?
not holding me to it, but I'm going to do footage as a boilerplate. We like to install a stick a day. A stick is 50 feet. That is our goal. I don't know what that berm is. That's why I'm saying it that way. If we have to excavate down to get to a reasonable level to make the installation appropriate, ideally, we're going to do hopefully no worse than 50 feet a day. If we get 100 foot, 150, 200 foot days, great. We're getting through there fast and getting out of there. That's our goal. So, but I would hope that we're doing no less. I mean, currently on our job, I mean, we had a 200 foot day over in Tualatin, guys. So we will move as long as things don't interrupt us along the way that would cause those impacts.
So when an unforeseen rock or series of rocks or rocks excavations discovered, and you have to bring in the new equipment, is the engineer, the consultant that you're hiring to determine potential damage to foundations brought back in again to evaluate the situation based on that unforeseen rock?
If we have a significant change in conditions, we would bring a team in. Just so you know, there was significant geotechnical excavations done or geotechnical explorations done over the last several years. I think we've had 3 reports. And also just knowing the region of Hillsborough, there's very little rock in the ground. It's one of the advantages of building in Hillsborough. There's a high groundwater table, but very little rock. We do not anticipate running into any, especially since it's an old rail corridor, what used to be a much lower property, and a lot of it's been filled in with that berm. So we know that it's actually fill that's already been placed there. And so there would be no rock in that. And I think the first 18 feet or something, don't quote me exactly, but the top like significant amount of that property is all fill material. And that we know there's no rock in the fill material. So if there's a significant change in conditions, we would consider bringing in someone to make sure that we're still compliant with our vibration analysis. But we really just don't expect that in this property.
If a homeowner feels that this situation has changed significantly, who do they go to say, hey, we would like the consultant brought back out, or we think the consultant needs to be brought back out? I assume they don't go to more excavation, at least not the on-site superintendent. They would have to go to somebody else. Who would that person be?
So as I mentioned in the PowerPoint, if there are any concerns at all about construction, about wildlife, we need you to call the hotline number or email us at that info at ourreliablewater.org email address. And I think Tammy, here I can put those contacts in the chat.
Do you answer those quickly? Any concerns? If a homeowner reaches out and says, hey.
So I monitor those contacts every single day.
Okay.
So, and then I am in touch with the project team every single day. So if we start to get concerns about, too much vibration, can we double check the monitors? Can we double check the report? Can we double check? Like, we can do that on the fly. And another thing that I have experienced on different projects is the monitors that they place. They are reading data all the time. Yeah. And so there are alarms and alerts if any kind of vibration exceeds the level that we think people would feel it. We'd get an alarm. If it exceeds like what we think there could be nearby property damage at a certain distance, they get an alarm. So they're constantly watching that data.
Okay, they get an alarm. What do they do when they get the alarm?
So they typically don't, because our construction does not create, just like Sean was explaining, there's no rock. This is very easy excavation through this area. We don't expect there to be alarms on those monitors. I'm just saying that they're placed and the data is continuous during construction. And if there is an alarm, then construction is stopped to find what's going on.
That's what I was after. They stopped the construction. And I know that the soil is soft, and with soft soil, with any kind of vibration, you can have foundation damage. Foundation damage due to earth movement is not covered under homeowners insurance at all. So people need to be aware of that. Oh, actually, you're talking about vibration monitoring. Let's talk about noise. What is your adherence to any kind of code compliance requirements regarding noise? Noise control.
I guess I'll take that one. The noise control for construction in Hillsborough is largely regulated through the work hours. And I think we touched on that in the presentation. So it really comes down to adhering to those work hours.
Okay, I guess I didn't. Please, I didn't quite understand what you were saying. As far as the noise control, yeah.
Typically, you were asking about adhering to noise regulations?
Well, there are noise control factors involved in this, and you can't exceed a certain type. Otherwise, it's a code violation. I mean, code compliance. So how are you dealing with that? How are you monitoring that?
Yeah, so you may be thinking about decibel limit requirements, so the actual volume of the sound. That typically applies to non-construction activities. With construction activities in Hillsborough Code, it really comes down to those work hours, because construction is typically noisier than the other types of noises that are allowed and regulated under code. So it is noisier. So that's controlled by limiting the work hours. I don't know if Sean, if MEI has thought about any other sorts of additional noise control measures, or Erica, if we have other specific noise control measures in our specifications that we could get into, or maybe that's a topic for a future meeting, but that's what I know about the code compliance side of it.
Well, have there been any noise complaints in the project up to this point in time? I mean, I know you have to check the specs as to what your noise guidelines are, and I understand that during work hours in construction, there is going to be more noise. I don't know if that necessarily means the noise can be whatever it has to be. At some point it becomes a nuisance value. So I assume the specifications deal with this in some fashion. Have there been any issues up to this point in time?
Yeah, so I'll just say that this is a very large construction project. We are building pipe in dozens of miles across Washington County, and people are experiencing noise every single day at our construction sites, and we limit those as much as we can. But they also understand that we are operating big machinery. We're operating within the legal permitted hours of operation to get this project done as quickly as possible. And so I don't believe we've ever violated a permit because of working too late in the evening or too early in the morning or anything like that. But people are experiencing noise near our construction sites every day.
Hey, Marlis, I was just going to add on to that. Like Joe was saying, in our specifications, we do have language in there that talks about tolerable limits of during construction. So just looking at it, it's 90 decibels when you're at 50 feet away is one of those things. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with 90 decibels, but that's still kind of loud. But at 50 feet away, it really will disperse pretty quickly there. So, I have an app on my phone that a lot of times when I'm out on a construction site and I think it gets a little too loud, I'll just check. And if it is too loud, I'll notify the contractor to adjust their means and methods to conform with the contract.
And in that type of situation, is it best for the homeowner then to kind of go to the on-site representatives like the superintendent of more excavation, the PM? I mean, who's the right person?
We really don't want members of the public approaching construction staff on a construction site. It's not safe. We would prefer that everyone go through the contacts that I put in the chat, the info@ourreliablewater.org email address and the hotline. And then I will get in touch with the construction crew.
right? What's the turnaround time? I mean, because when it's happening in real time and they're trying to contact you, you got a full plate on a project like this and everything else you got going on. So I'm just wondering what the turnaround time is by the time someone actually gets to the contractor to resolve the problem.
If there's an actual problem to resolve, it's the same day, typically.
Most of the noise, as a 2 cents to also add, is going to be when we're directly in front of your homes. So we talked about productions, that 150 foot, 100 foot, we're going to be out of your guys' homes really fast is the goal. You're going to hear less of us as we get moving. It's going to be, honestly, when we're right in front of your homes, it's going to feel the biggest impact to those homeowners. And then we're going to be moving along real fast. So, and again, it's during the day. It's a 7 to 5 to be the least disruptive to everybody else. We're trying to be mindful of, I think the program is of nighttime and making sure everybody gets that evening time, nighttime and morning time to themselves.
I'm going to go back to the vibration company who's going to put the monitors in the ground somewhere around here. Some of us homeowners have discussed putting our own vibration monitors in the ground, and we're checking into that. But we would like information as that, Erica, as you get that, we would like to know what company you're using. The more information, the better for homeowners. And I know this is a little ways out, but these are our assets, and we want to protect them, and we want to take the steps necessary to protect them. And hopefully you will help us do that. And I'm hearing some good things from the construction company, but please understand that we do know that the soft ground vibrations down 50 feet can cause damage to your foundation. So we do want to be very proactive in protecting our property. And we'd really like information and help from you guys to do that. I actually want to ask something about the park. I think I had to step out for a call. I know you're doing the vegetation for the birds. You're clearing that path out. I know that you also mentioned you'd be going through the grasses to relocate the rabbit bunny nests as they are located there before you move through an area. When will that occur on your timeline?
This is Jill. The vegetation clearing in January is just vegetation, which it sounds like you got that. Okay, yeah. We have Phil Rickus, who spoke earlier. He is our environmental compliance lead for the project, so he'll be out on the site quite regularly. He goes out to the park right now on a fairly regular basis, just timing depends on season changes, weather, etc., just to kind of keep an eye on wildlife movement corridors, where the rabbit colonies are, just whatever he can observe walking the site. So he's kind of keeping regular tabs on that at this point. And there will also be some photos and or videos, I believe, collected prior to construction to kind of make sure we understand what pre-construction conditions are. So all of that, as far as timeline, it depends a little bit on exactly when the construction in the park is going to start, but it will just be much closer, seasonality being what it is. I don't think he's I don't think he's still on the call, unfortunately.
I'm still here, Joe.
Oh, you are still here.
Yeah.
So Phil, I don't know if you could say something about the timing of rabbit colonies specifically in terms of construction starting.
So I've been going out there for over a year now, and I've looked at the entire TCE many times and haven't found any rabbit colonies there. The rabbits that I have noted were south of Rock Creek, in that wetland there that's south of the bridge. That was the main population right now. So I'm just keeping an eye on them, and we'll, make sure that we're not going to dig them up.
Right. I don't want you to mow over and dig them up.
Yep. No, we're on it. We're on it.
Yeah, actually, we have them behind our house. And we're real close to the park. So
we'll make sure that they're okay. Yeah, there haven't been any, but there's no colonies along the area that they're digging up, so we should be good to go.
Okay,
And
all right, thank you,
keep
Phil.
checking to make sure, yeah.
All right,
Yep.
thank you. I appreciate that. Is everybody left me? I guess that's it, right?
Oh, yeah, huh, I'm only getting you now. Maybe it's back there. Oh, Jill's laughing, so I think.
All
we'll
the
just wait
homeowners
to
left?
switch. Yeah.
Oh,
Do we have any other questions? I know it looked like a lot of people kind of were dropping off as we went along here. But just want to make sure we've answered all the questions while we're all here.
I think if we have any further questions, I don't want to call a hotline. I would like to email someone regarding.
When you call the hotline, guess
Yeah.
who you're gonna get?
What?
Me.
Yeah, you're gonna get back to me the same day?
Yes,
She
typically,
does,
yes.
she does. It's what she does.
But, you know, regarding, you know, the homeowners are concerned, and you understand that, you're homeowners.
Yeah.
And you have a project to do. And, but if we have some concerns, if we get together and talk or whatever we need to do, we would like to, you know, reach out to you and get the information, answers back from you. That'd be great.
Yeah, and again, Sheila, we're going to be in direct contact with homeowners. You know, again, we're a year away from building in the berm. So right now,
I'm still going to be here.
Yes, absolutely. And we are too. So we're going to get through this together. And, you know, as Sean mentioned, like as quickly as possible, you know what I mean, safely and as quickly as possible to limit the impacts.
And I wanted to ask Sean, are you still on?
He is on.
Okay. Moving quickly behind our homes is, of course, something we'd like to see. And as far as distance, 100 feet is what he may have indicated, or something like that in a day is good work. I was just out on Shoals Ferry where you're digging the pipeline, and I had to get somewhere that I couldn't get to. But I was wondering how quickly sections move along for the homeowner's sake. You know, I know you guys want to get through for cost sake and getting through the whole thing, but just, is it 100 feet, Sean, or did you mention 50 to 100 feet a day, or?
I said our goal would be worst case to do a stick. So a stick, well, most people are going to term is going to be 50 feet. I think are 48-foot sticks. There might be some shorter ones. This is a long stretch, so I'd assume they'd all mostly be 48-footers in that stretch. But yes, I mean, 100 feet to 200 feet, I'd like to say, I don't want to guarantee anything on those things. But our ultimate mindset would be that we're pulling our shoring as we're going, we're installing pipe. We might have some restoration to clean up along the way, because a pipe team is a big operation. You know, we're 7, 8, 9, 10 guys strong. We're going to try to be cost effective, get through there with the pipe, and then we're going to do some restoration behind us.
Marlis, you know, down where Bill and Katie live.
Yes.
You're going to move down toward Cherry.
Yes.
And you will run equipment until you get to Cherry, and then you dig up Cherry. Will you still use this path behind our home to get moving across Cherry into the other area? Will you go down Cherry Drive and back up? What's the path for the equipment?
That's a good question for Erica. I think we will be using the property to move back and forth.
Okay.
But Erica, why don't you answer that one?
I don't know that it's totally been determined yet, but we may do that because the staging area is at the fire station. And I believe what we'll be pulling pipe from the staging area up the berm property. But that, I don't know that we've gotten to that level of detail quite yet.
Yeah, well, for our purpose of having this construction go, you know, maybe you're behind our home a month, but for the entirety up to Cherry and beyond, are you running trucks and pipes and dump trucks and everything behind our home? Because that increases the vibration.
Yeah, there is a potential that we will be running construction equipment up and down the entirety of the property throughout construction.
And Sheila, the big benefit, I know this doesn't sound like a benefit to homeowners.
Not much does, right?
But I know, but the benefit is that we will be able to build more quickly and be done sooner if we do that versus trying to get back out onto commercial streets or on, roads.
But that's a long stretch. If you're talking down to Cherry, that's not such a big stretch, but across and over again, back out to Cornelius Pass. So that's quite a few months. And then again, that would be increasing with the trucks and the dump trucks and the big equipment moving behind our homes. I know you may not be digging, but you're running large equipment back there. So that's what my concern was.
I wanted to just revisit a point. You were asking about Shoals Ferry and the progress that the contractor can make. And it is a little bit different. I know one of the slowest parts about putting pipe in a roadway is the utility conflicts. There's so many utilities that are existing in the roadway that you have to go around, and it makes installing shoring a lot more time consuming. So it's a little bit hard to compare, apples to apples for like a Shoals Ferry. We're lucky in the fact that this property, we don't expect any utilities. There's some in Cherry Drive, but not in the berm. And so we can make probably better progress than in some other projects on this property, just knowing that there are no conflicting utilities in the way. So Sean already spoke to, what kind of progress they can hope to make in a day, but that is one thing that's working for us on this particular stretch.
Okay, thank you. I'm the only one left.
Are you? Okay. Well, that's okay. Anyone?
More
else?
questions?
More questions? Anyone? For Sheila, any questions for Sheila?
Yeah, you can ask. I'm game. No, I think truly you're going to hear a little bit more from us as we gather our thoughts with this presentation. I do.
And you're going to be hearing a lot more from us too, as we move along.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. I think this might be it.
Right.
Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Super appreciate it. If you haven't signed up for email updates, please do that. That is the best place to get information. And we will be in touch with you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.